We made it to the end of the road. It is the AFC North preview on the Athletic Football Show, our 8th and final division preview. Dave, I appreciate you plowing through all these. This is your first go around with the division previews, and you've been an absolute trooper here.
It's like training camp, man. You know, you do 2-a-days, 4 days in a row, 1 day off for like a month, and by the time the season gets here, it's going to feel easy. It's great. It's the perfect way to get ready.
It's the ramp-up period. That's what these 2 weeks are on the Athletic Football Show. Derrik, this is old hat for you now. You're used to all this.
Yeah, I mean, it's only year 2, but when you get really thrown into the fire year 1 with doing these 2-hour previews, you kind of get used to it. So now this is just what it is. This is just what the end of August feels like. So I'm happy to have done it again.
It's a lot. Right? It's 16 hours of content over a 2-week period, and we pour a lot into them because I just love doing them. I think it's a great way to kind of set yourself up for the season. For me, I like it as an outlet for all of the travel that I did during training camp, being able to kind of download a lot of those conversations into this. But it is a lot, and it's not only a lot for you, for us, for the listeners, it's a lot for the people behind the scenes. And I just want to thank everybody for all of the work done on these over the last couple of weeks because it is no small feat. Our video producer, Michael Iob, Alice Devine and Megan Orpik, both of whom handled the thumbnails for our YouTube channel. And if you have not seen this, we have individual videos, like 25 to 30-ish minute videos for all 32 of these teams that will be released on our YouTube channel, probably by the end of today if you're listening to this on Friday. So if you have not seen any of these, Labor Day weekend is a great time for you to go catch up on all of it. And the last person I wanted to thank, Danielle Lehman, who tied it all together for us on the video side, on the audio side, and obviously Michael Beller, our social guy, Scott Crinch, like just the amount of pure work that has been done on these over the last couple of weeks. It means a lot. Everyone really pouring themselves into it and giving everything they have to make all of this work. So appreciate that and appreciate all of you guys for sticking with us through these. Hopefully, if you've missed any of them, you will have some time over the course of this weekend to catch up a little bit. So let's dig into the AFC North preview, and let's kick things off with the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens offseason in 60 seconds. Extended Kyle Hamilton, 4 years, $100 million. Retained that happened like yesterday. Retained Ronnie Stanley, 3 years, $60 million. Extended Derrick Henry, 3 years, $30 million with 25 guaranteed. Smaller deals for Jair Alexander, DeAndre Hopkins, Cooper Rush, Joe Nobu, and Patrick Ricard. Pick Malachi Starks in the first round, edge Mike Green in the second round, offensive guard / tackle Emory Jones in the third round, linebacker Teddy Buchanan in the fourth round, 129th overall, lost Patrick McCarry, Brandon Stevens, and Malik Harrison in free agency. Derrik, what are you excited to watch with the 2025 Baltimore Ravens? I have a feeling I know where you're going to go with this.
Lamar Jackson's going to do it again, man. 3 years in a row where he's going to be an MVP candidate. Like, there's no reason for me to believe that that's not going to happen. And it's for a couple of reasons. One, we already saw Lamar Jackson obviously being MVP the first year that he was a starter, but that was a very different player. And I think over the last 2 years, he has become like his ability to manage pre-snap, his ability to handle protections, his ability to beat the blitz. Like, he has become all of the stuff that we ascribe to like the Tom Brady's and Drew Brees' of the world, on top of like, oh, he's also the best athlete out there. So like, he has truly become this very, very special combination of different skill sets and players. And also, he was in the MVP race last year, and they've brought back like effectively all of the same players. It's the same ensemble that he proved that he could do this with again. Like, barring some sort of catastrophe around him, he's going to be in the MVP race again.
The only real criticism of Lamar Jackson's season last year is him blacking out for 2 plays during the divisional round.
Yeah, that's
it. Like, that's really it. And, you know, that's still not good. And we still need to see them do it in the playoffs. And we'll talk all about that over the course of this preview, Dave. But the ratio of what we can criticize Lamar Jackson for and what he still needs to prove to us, the pie chart, there's like a tiny little sliver left. And even compared to 2 years ago when he won the MVP, Derrik, you and I have talked about this a lot. You could still get after him if you heated him up. Even in that 2023 season, we saw teams try to do it to him in the playoffs. You know, the Texans tried to do it to him. And last year, his performance against the blitz, that was really the last box to check for me with him as a regular season player. Now, it's really just those couple plays and eliminating them in the playoffs before we get Lamar Jackson unassailable at pretty much every level of this game.
I also just think when I look at the Ravens, and obviously Lamar's the headliner, he should be. He's going to be in the MVP conversation once again this year. But when I was looking at the Ravens depth chart, and at this point in this process for us, I think I see ourlads.com in my sleep right now. And I was looking at their depth chart, And okay, if you're an Eagles fan or a Lions fan, maybe you can argue with me about the sheer star power. But looking over the Ravens roster, like, I think this is the deepest, most complete team in the NFL. Like, sure, maybe they're lacking an all-pro caliber player or two. Like, I'm thinking about the Eagles right now. Maybe their ceiling at receiver isn't as high as the Eagles, but 1 through 3, you got great depth. You bring your whole offensive line back in addition to drafting a couple of guys who could potentially help you this year. You get a veteran swing tackle. They got one of the deepest running back rooms in the league. Yeah, maybe it's not as star-studded as like Detroit with Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, but having Justice Hill and getting Keaton Mitchell, who looks very healthy, back behind Derrick Henry, that's great. And it goes all the way through the defense as well, where you drafted big time in the secondary. You signed some veterans at cornerback. Like, they're just incredibly solid, and you have to quibble to find something that looks like a real question mark. So even if it's not as star-studded, I certainly think this is, if it's not the best roster in football, it's on a very short list.
I think it might be the roster with the fewest obvious holes or fewest obvious question marks. Because I think, like you said, even the Eagles, like that cornerback 2 spot is going to be a question. We'll see what happens. You're putting a rookie in at that other safety spot who's a second-round pick, and Malachi Stark's just a better prospect than Andrew Makuba is, right? So I just think there are fewer question marks with this team. When you're nitpicking on the Ravens roster concerns, it's like they don't have a third safety that will allow Kyle Hamilton to play closer to the line of scrimmage. Like, we're having to dig pretty deep to find issues with how this team is constructed. And even that was because of injury.
I was going to say, even that's just bad luck because you were supposed to have Ardarius Washington.
Yeah, and I think this to me is like interesting with the offense because we've talked about before, Robert, when you have the flame-throwing quarterback, the Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, or Lamar Jackson, when you have one of these three, you don't necessarily need the other stars on the offense. You just need to make sure everyone else is okay. And they go down to like okay quality, like 3 deep into all their skill players and offensive line stuff. Like it's hard to see what like the worst case scenario for this even is.
And why I think that we've kind of gotten to this place with Lamar Jackson is that the rest of the offense has been constructed in such a way that I think has helped propel him to this point. And you look at what the Ravens offense was last year. To me, it was like the perfect marriage of this weird, wonky, hard to prepare for offense that they had been under Greg Roman because of all of the personnel layers that they have, plus all of the answers that have been built into what the Todd Monken version of this looks like. So last year, they played 28% 11 personnel. That was dead last in the league, and it was down from 47% the previous year. And so you're having to prepare for this weird version of 12 where maybe it's Mark Andrews and Likely, so that's kind of like 11 and a half, but maybe it's Charlie Kohler sometimes, and then they have these 21 personnel looks where Patrick Ricard is kind of a fullback and kind of a tight end, and then sometimes it's 22 because Ricard's out there, but is that kind of like actually 13? And all of these things that they're doing make it harder on the defense, and they're phenomenal in these personnel groupings. Last year, out of 12 personnel, they averaged 7.7 yards per play with a 50% success rate. It's obnoxious. And they do it in all of these different ways. That the 12 personnel grouping with Andrews and Likely is so fascinating to me because that's probably your best 4 pass catchers on the field together, independent of what positions they play. But then you look at the run game and the way it's designed out of those looks, and it's unlike anything in the NFL. So last year, against 12 personnel looks, the Ravens saw more light boxes than any team in football, according to Next Gen Stats. 57.5% of runs out of 12 personnel. That seems counterintuitive because they're such a good running team. But the reason for that is that their 12 personnel with Andrews and Likely on the field is really spread out, and so their boxes on offense are really light. They were the only team in the NFL out of 12 personnel looks last year. Their average offensive box was fewer than 6 players. So they're actually at a numbers disadvantage even against the lightest boxes in the league. But because Lamar changes the number count in the run game, and because of what they do to weaponize that space, misdirection with jet motion with the receivers, Likely slicing back across the formation, they're dominant in those looks. So there's really just so many different things they're doing that are different than what other teams are doing. And when you filter that through a guy who has totally reached a different level as a player at quarterback and an otherwise really good roster, you end up with the Ravens offense that we saw a year ago. Like, it's truly just a joy-inducing thing for me to think about, and I cannot wait to watch it again.
The personnel thing is so interesting because most teams, when we think of like 12 personnel bully ball, it's just by virtue of like, we're just going to kick the out of you with some of our players, and they can do that, but they're more, like you said, they spread out, and it's just like, well, if we have these two big tight ends on the field and our running back is 250-pound Derrick Henry, we're just going to create all of these one-on-one scenarios where we're bigger than you and we're just going to win. And that's, I think, part of why Derrick Henry was going from what he was at the end of Tennessee, where he's just running into brick walls, and stuff like that, whereas he gets a lot more space to operate with here. And I think that's why he's been as good as he has. And I want to harp on for the millionth time, Lamar Jackson with Derrick Henry is the most ridiculous pairing of runners together in a backfield that we've ever seen in the sport. Like, it doesn't make sense that they get to play together. And so the fact that they've done that on top of how Monken's put it together, it's just like, it's a special unit.
The Ravens would be really good if they didn't have players that could uniquely manipulate every defense they play, but they do have that. And that's very fun for us and very scary for teams that have to play them.
The last number I'll throw out there, they averaged 6.6 yards per carry with a 50% success rate out of 12 personnel last year. And I think that's exactly the right point about Derrick Henry, is that was what they were excited about heading into last season. It's like, this is going to be the first time in forever when he has actual space to work. And when you get him with a head of steam and he's up to the second level, it's over. And we just didn't get to see a lot of that near the end in Tennessee because of how that offense was constructed. And so, Dave, you said this about another team. I think it was maybe the Cardinals yesterday. But this is one of those moments where it really is lovely when a plan comes together. And that is exactly the story of the 2023 Ravens. And I expect to see them continue at least some version of that into this year. Let's talk about the swing points on the 2025 Baltimore Ravens. Dave, what do you got for me?
We just gave this very lovely opening spiel about how good the Ravens offense is and how unique they are and all the different ways they can manipulate things and win. So I don't know if this is going to sound like if I'm nitpicking or quibbling or what, but heading into year 3, I'd like to see how much more meat is on the bone for Zay Flowers, who is a good receiver, but I don't think it's harsh criticism to say that the Ravens don't have like that true difference-making wide receiver in the offense. I think it's worth mentioning. I think it goes unnoticed by a lot of people that Zay Flowers wasn't there in the playoffs. Maybe that's enough to lift them last season. But even still, I think there's room for Zay Flowers to grow as a player. I was digging through the stats while we were getting ready for this show. You guys realize that Zay Flowers had a 27% target share last year, which is 13th in the NFL. Like, he's right behind Brock Bowers, and he's right in company with Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown in terms of how much Lamar was targeting him last year. But does it feel that way to you? Because it doesn't to me.
And also, is that when he's on the field, or is that overall like team target share? I'd be curious about that.
I believe that's team target share.
It feels high. I wonder if that's just because they're not throwing the ball quite as much as some of these other teams, and that's why the volume stats
I think that's part
there.
of it, and also a lot of his touches are like, they do a lot of the jet stuff to him, which is technically a pass, but when you watch it, does not feel like a pass. So it might be part of like the...
To your point, Robert, Lamar Jackson attempted fewer passes than basically any franchise quarterback except Jalen Hurts. Like, the only guys who attempted fewer passes than Lamar were the guys that missed a significant amount of playing time, like at least 2 or 3 games. So, yeah, it is hard when you're playing in an offense like that. So that's why I wanted to go and look at the rest of the picture with Zay Flowers. And a stat that jumped out to me, he finished 86 receiving yards over expectation on the year, which is it is a low, low number. Like, I just feel like the receivers in this offense in general, and definitely Zay Flowers, are really good at getting what's there. And obviously there's a lot there, Robert. You just alluded to a lot of it. Zay Flowers had almost 4 yards of separation on his targets last year, which was 6th best in the league. And funnily enough, Rashad Bateman finished 9th in the league. The Ravens had 2 receivers in the top 10 of the most separation per target. I don't think that's surprising anybody. But to finish with so few yards over expectation, to me, when it's that easy for you, I think that's very curious. And so I would just like to see maybe a more efficient Zay Flowers, maybe a Zay Flowers who makes more contested plays. He had 5 catches in tight windows last year. Just if it's there for you and it's easy, Zay Flowers can do it. But I do think potentially there's room for him to grow into a more dangerous receiver. And it's only year 3. I don't think Zay Flowers is in his final form as a player, but it could be really fun for this offense if he takes another step from what's already a pretty good receiver.
The potentially good news is that Zay Flowers knows what his problem is, which is that he keeps running backwards when he gets the ball, which is why I think his probably expected yards gained is not as good. Like, there are just so many times last year where he catches the ball like 2 yards short of the sticks and tries to be a hero and just doesn't end up getting to the sticks. But he posted a video earlier this offseason where he like kind of said that he was going to stop doing that. So if he does, I think that alone might, bridge the gap of like getting Zay Flowers to go from like pretty good player to like, okay, this guy's a very serious contributor for what should be a Super Bowl team.
My theory about why that number might be a little bit low when it comes to receiving yards over expectation is it's similar to why there were stretches where the Dolphins didn't have a lot of yak. When you're throwing the ball down the field as much as you are on like vertical throws, right? If you're running a lot of like vertical stem outside the numbers routes or like these big in breakers over the middle 20 yards down the field, you're not getting a lot of yak. Like the vertical shots are not conducive to that. And that is, in my opinion, where Zay Flowers is best. Like when he can eat up space as a vertical receiver, either on like deeper in cuts or those outside the numbers routes, that's where I think he's best. I think that there is just never going to be a level of physicality to his game that is necessary for a player that size. Like the guys who are able to really thrive and become like true number ones at that size, there's something superhero-ish about one aspect of their game. Like Tyreek just is built in a way that very few smaller receivers are built in how strong he is and obviously the speed. And then with Antonio Brown, it was that contested catch stuff as a smaller receiver. Like what Antonio Brown could do down the field in contested situations for somebody who was like 5'11" was just rare. And so I think Zay Flowers is just kind of a victim of the normal limitations we have on smaller receivers. And I just don't know how much of that goes away as he gets a little bit deeper into his career. And that worries me a little bit because if we're not going to have a better version of any of those guys, is there going to be a little bit of regression in some areas of this offense if everyone kind of stays the same? But I understand why you're asking. For me, I wonder what that actually looks like.
I'll be interested to watch because he had a healthy amount of yak and he had a healthy amount of yak over expectation as well. Like if you get him the ball in space, obviously he's a fast, shifty guy. He can do stuff with it. But that doesn't jive with yards over expectation just in general. So I don't know. I confused myself a little bit when I was looking deeper into Zay Flowers. And it's a very good point about him being a smaller receiver. And I do think that comes with natural limitations. But if he can level up some aspect of his game, particularly when it's not always wide open with 4 yards of separation, maybe there's something there. I don't know how much more, but again, for a guy that's only going into year 3, I'm at least interested to watch and see if it can be slightly better.
To be clear, I love Zay Flowers. I want that on the record. I absolutely love Zay Flowers. I'm not a sizist like Derrik. I'm actually okay with what smaller receivers are, and he's one of my favorite players in the league to watch. I just think that there are probably going to be some inherent limitations. Derrik, what was your swing point for the 2025 Ravens? An area where you think this season might pivot for this team?
I just think, like, to me, it's the secondary, and I have no doubts that they're going to be a good secondary. But can they be, like, a special secondary is the difference to me. Obviously, Kyle Hamilton is to me, the best safety in the league. Marlon Humphrey is still a fantastic player, especially the more that he gets to play from the nickel. I think that is true. So, to me, it's just, like, can Nate Wiggins go from, like, pretty good rookie season, we like this guy, to okay, this is like a serious, can just man up with anybody, play that style of corner. Can he be that? And then can Malachi Starks be like a real difference maker at safety? Because I think a lot of the guys they've put next to Kyle Hamilton at safety have been nice role players. But I think if Malachi Starks can be some level above that, I think that would go a really long way for this defense. And I've liked what I saw from Malachi Starks in the preseason. Like he can play in the box, he can play in the post, like he can do a lot of things for them. So I'm pretty bullish on it, but I do want to see it first because it's a couple of young pieces.
Mine is kind of an extension of that. To me, it's like the spine of the defense in general. Like, I feel pretty good about the corner situation. Like, I do think Nate Wiggins is going to take a step this year. I think with having Jair Alexander and Chidobe Awuzie in that other outside cornerback spot, they'll at least have somebody serviceable there for the rest of the year. To me, it's the third safety spot and the lack of it and how it affects what you can do with Kyle Hamilton and the flexibility you have on defense. That guy just isn't here right now. Like, after losing Ardarius Washington, they're not going to have that sort of flexibility. So what does that do to the defense overall? overall. And then kind of the linebacker spot within the spine. What do we get from Trenton Simpson this year as they rely on him even more in some of those, two linebacker looks that we're going to see? And Roquan Smith bounced back in the second half of last year, but there was a stretch last season where we saw some of his roughest play in a while, and they need him to be a superstar for this to all come together. So are we going to see something closer to what we saw when kind of things evened out last year, or are we going to see a continuation of maybe some of his rougher moments from last year? Because I do think that the defense, Derrik, could go one way or another based on what version of him we get for 17 games.
I mean, it could, because almost in the way that, the old Rams Staley defense like pivoted off of two field tilting players in Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. That's kind of what the Ravens were doing when Mike McDonald was there with Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton, and what they were able to do and like have this cascading effect around the rest of the defense. Well, if Roquan Smith is only playing at 85% of whatever his highest quality is, that's a good player, but that's not necessarily field tilting in the way that he was before. So he does need to play at a very high level again. Very high level again.
I do think that year 2 of Zach Orr as the defensive coordinator, he learned some lessons last year. And sometimes when you are going into another year of the same system, quote unquote, because he was obviously there before, you're trying to add different layers and flexibility into that system. And I do think there are a lot of like formational checks and certain things where we're trying to get in the exact right play all the time based on what the offense was doing. And I do think early in the year, that was weighing guys down a little bit. The way that I understand it is they've streamlined a lot of how they're teaching the defense in order to kind of take that mental weight off of a lot of these guys and be combined with what they got from Kyle Hamilton at that deep safety spot in the back half of the year. That was one of the reasons that the defense settled down a little bit. Throw in the fact that they didn't play a lot of good offenses in the second half of last year. So this is one more important bit of context for what those defensive numbers look like when they were the best defense in the league. But I do think that personnel-wise, and with Orr coming into year 2, they brought in some new voices coaching-wise. Chuck Pagano is there in the back end. So I just think that overall, this group is much more settled now heading into year 2 than it was heading into year 1 with Zach Orr last year, when such a huge portion of that defensive staff left.
That's a point I meant to make at the top, too, is you don't have the coaching turnover this year, which is always going to be a thing. I mean, you get a remarkable amount of continuity for a team that had an MVP caliber player and made a playoff run and all that good stuff.
What's keeping you up at night, Derrik, about the 2025 Baltimore Ravens?
There's nothing about this roster that makes me think they won't be a top 5 team in the NFL, which leads me to believe that just like, what if it happens again in the divisional round where they're just not good enough? Because I'm confident they are good enough to get there again. But how many years have we said that about this team? And how many different times have we said that about the Lamar Jackson-led Ravens? And I'm not, again, this is not me saying like there's something inherent to the way that they're built that they can't do this. It's just that like I don't want to do this again where in week 14, I'm like, this is clearly the best team in the NFL. And then 4 weeks later, they just lose some game to Buffalo that they're not supposed to lose. Like, I don't want to see it again.
It's one of the frustrating parts about this team, Dave, is that we can get excited about them in the regular season. Lamar Jackson Quinn, like another MVP award, and none of it matters. Like nothing they do before January 1st matters. And that's a tough place to be. It's a tough place to be when you're talking about them. It's a tough place to be when you're a fan of this team. But that is exactly the situation that the Ravens have found themselves in.
I wonder if it's a tough place to be as a member of the organization and like publicly.
Has to be.
Dude, yeah. I think Marlon Humphrey has talked about like, dude, like there's nothing we need to do. We just have to play better. Like that's it. Like we just have to play better, and that's a hard pill to swallow.
It's a maddening place to be, and that's how I felt rewatching the game today. Like the first interception, I was like, Lamar, you lost your mind.
Yes.
Like he lost his mind twice in that game. And it's just, you don't do that and everything changes. And I don't know how to say, well, just don't do that anymore. But that's kind of where we are.
It sucks too, because they really have checked every box. Like I'm thinking about the Bills right now, and the Bills are in a similar spot, but if you're a Bills fan, maybe you can at least say like, well, we've never had the 1 seed. We've never gotten the bye, and we've never had to, nobody's had to definitely come to Buffalo. We've had home field advantage all the way through. The Ravens have done it all. They've been the 1 seed. They've been to the AFC title game. Lamar's won the MVP twice, as a matter of fact. Like, yeah, there's nothing this team can do during the regular season to prove that it's different than any of the others. And I would hate to be in that spot. I really would, because I will say this though. I hope don't let that take the joy out of it for you, because this is still an incredibly fun team to watch. But at the end of the day, they're going to be measured by January, and that's just the bottom line.
I think it's easier for us not to have the joy sucked out, because for us, the end result can't be that devastating, right? We actually get to enjoy the ride because we can't just get totally destroyed by how it ends. You can be a little bit disappointed for Lamar, but you're not a Ravens fan who's like living and dying with that moment. So
this is easy. It's easy for me to say as a non-Ravens fan, but when your team is capable of doing magical like this, just buckle in. Just accept it wholeheartedly. Don't try to pretend like you're not going to be devastated if it happens again. Just buckle up and enjoy the ride, and hopefully the ending is better than it has been.
Mine is kind of similar to this. We don't have to spend a ton of time on it, but what's keeping me up at night is, did they already lose their best chance? Have we already seen their best chance to make this happen? They had the number one defense in the league 2 years ago. They had the number one offense in the league last year. And last season, I believe, looking at the FTN numbers, I'm pretty sure they finished number one on offense and defense in adjusted games lost last year. That's just not going to happen again. And so it really does feel like the way that the last couple of seasons have been set up, you had the number one defense in the league and an MVP quarterback in 2023, and then you had a historically good offense last season. What does that look like for your third go-around? And so that's what I'm keeping an eye on. Like, is there just a chance that we have seen this team's best opportunity to get this over the finish line? And that absolutely would be keeping me up at night. Let's talk about what we're watching the first month of the season for the Ravens. I'll kick this off. There aren't a lot of things. Again, not a lot of swing points, not a lot of things that are keeping us up at night with Baltimore. I just want to see what we get out of the rookies. You mentioned Derrik, Malachi Starks. Like, how good is Malachi Starks from day one? And then, there's a reason Mike Green fell to the second round of the draft, but Mike Green is a very talented pass rusher. They've needed like one more edge rusher in the mix here. What do they get out of Mike Green? And then, Dave, there was one more guy you wanted to throw into this, which I protest, but I can understand why we need to talk about him.
The only other team I brought up special teams for was the Bills. So I think it's fitting that we bring it up for the Ravens. They have a rookie kicker. Justin Tucker was not great last year anyway, and obviously he's not on the team for reasons also. So I don't know how much people miss Justin Tucker, but you still got a rookie kicking for a team with Super Bowl aspirations. Tyler Loop, he was 9 of 11 in the preseason, perfect on extra points. His misses were from 46 and 50. I don't know. That's all I got to go on, but like I said, I think
you weren't doing a lot of deep Tyler Loop scouting in college.
No, I'm not looking at Tyler Loop's approach in cold weather. I'm sorry. I'm not that detail oriented, but look, like I said, Justin Tucker was not good last year, but this is the type of team where a rookie making a high pressure kick against some of these teams and in some of these situations could be a scary proposition. I'm thinking about Evan McPherson and how good he was as a rookie for the Bengals. So it's totally possible he could be awesome, but it would make me a little bit nervous if I knew going into the season that the Ravens were going to be playing in some big time games.
I'm also keeping a very
Derrik,
small
I'll give
eye.
you $100 if you could tell me where Tyler Loop went to college.
I'm just going to say like Western Kentucky or something. I don't know.
It's Arizona.
Oh, nope. I had nothing.
Did you know that, Dave?
I'm not. I was going to say Western Kentucky. I don't know why.
It just feels like
Derrik
if
and I
someone
were on
is
the same
asking me
page.
that question, it's going to be something like Western Kentucky.
Derrik, what are you watching in the first month of the season for the Ravens?
The only thing they've really done to this offense is to add DeAndre Hopkins, who, like, if they didn't, would still be a top 5 offense anyway. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what does he add for them? Because I think we like Rashad Bateman as kind of like a one-on-one separator. Obviously, Zay Flowers is a little bit of your stretch guy, horizontal and vertical. Can DeAndre Hopkins just be like enough of an extra little chain mover for them? Like, if he just gives them a little bit more than that they've gotten from their other tertiary receivers, that could go a long way for staving off whatever regression, especially injury-wise, might come for this team.
What is success for the 2025 Baltimore Ravens? Win the whole thing.
Yeah, you got to do it, man. Like I said, I'm tired of seeing this team not do it. And at this stage, when you have been, I think over the past 2 years in the regular season, you can make the case that the Ravens were the best team in football. And they it would be my bet to be that team again this year. You've got to win it, man. Like, you just have to do it.
Cue the soundbite from Major League.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. That's the exact moment I go to when it comes to the expectations for the Ravens this year.
Thanks for watching The Athletic Football Show. Subscribe to the channel to keep up with us. Like and comment on this video, and we'll see you next time.